Merhaba sevgili seyirciler, Cannes'da Microsoft'un standındayız. Microsoft burada birçok ilginç özellik ve cihaz tanıtıyor. Bunlardan aslında yaratıcı işleri en çok ilgilendiren Surface'ın bu yönünü tanıtmak üzere yanımızda Surface ekibinden Marcus var. Welcome Marcus.
Thank you very much.
Marcus, can you give us some specific features about how can creative people use the Surface and what are some cool features there?
Absolutely, yeah. So the device that we have here is actually a Surface Pro 3. We have a docking station in it, and we're just using the big screen as an additional screen. And then basically Windows 10 is all the things you love about Windows 7 and Windows 8, but we've changed the user interface to the familiar Start menu that you have before. So if you click down on Start, you get this Start menu that is down in the bottom left-hand corner. And again, the OS will scale based on what you need, the size of your device, to show this is a full screen mode or not. But what I really want to show you here is how this device has the form factor of a tablet, but it really runs like a laptop. And so we can actually run the full Adobe Creative Cloud on this device in something that's slightly bigger than a normal tablet would be. And so if I open up Photoshop here, Adobe's been doing a lot of work to optimize its user interface to be better for pen and touch. And so what we can do here now is we can control this in a user interface that's much more pen friendly and touch friendly. And I can show you some of the cool things that you can do with the actual application. So if I go in here, for example, and have an image where in this particular case it's very shaky. This could be a scenario where you couldn't hold quite still enough while you're working on it. I can hover because I have an active stylus, and if I get in here, and you can see that very quickly the operating system will analyze all the pixel and it'll crisp up the image, and it becomes very, very sharp very quickly. So the other great application of using the Photoshop applications on this device is that really you're not tied down to where you're using these applications, right? Again, this is the form factor of a tablet, but the power of a laptop. And so you can compare this to what a lot of people in the creative industry use, which are laptops, but they tie them down to their desk. And if we think about the way that creators work, it's really about working anywhere you want. And so this idea of creativity untethered, this idea of working where inspiration strikes you is very, very important. And so, for example, if I'm a photographer in the field, I'm doing wedding photography, I'm doing landscape photography, and I want to provide my client with images beforehand, before I go back to the studio. I don't have to wait to travel home and do that at home. I can do that in the field with an application like Photoshop running on this tablet size device. And so, for example, what if you wanted to move this boy to be closer to his mom, and you can do that simply with your finger. I can use what we call the content-aware move tool. I can get in here, and what I can do is with my finger, I can trace the boy, or with the pen, right? Both work interchangeably. And I can get in here, and I can circle the boy. And then once I've highlighted him, I can simply drag and drop him over and drop him off. And it's going to analyze the pixel around it, and it's going to move him over to the side. And now I've created a picture where he's moved from one side to the next, right? Or again, if you are thinking about wanting to create something, you can do this on the subway very easily, right? Because you're on the go, and you want to edit something. Say you're a creative professional, you're on your way to the client, you need to make edits to the application that or the program that you want to present to your client, for example, but you're tied down because you have a laptop that's very heavy, very bulky. But with this device, you can simply have it on your lap and do something very simple as moving this train down onto the track. So I'm going to show you a tool called the Perspective Move tool. I'm going to go in here under Edit, and select Perspective Warp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw two planes that roughly represent this train in its perspective. So I'm basically telling the computer how this train currently looks in terms of from a perspective point of view. You don't have to be super accurate as you're doing this. Really, it's about just telling the computer in what kind of perspective this train is sitting. And then I switch to the edit mode, and what I can do now is I can simply drag this train onto the tracks, right? Because I created the background image before, and I put the train in afterwards. And so I'm going to grab this bottom edge of the train here, and I'm just going to drag it down onto the train tracks, and then I'm going to adjust this train to tilt right. There you go, and now I have the train back on the tracks, right? So let me show you one more thing that Adobe has been working on. that we released recently at the Adobe Max conference just last year. The idea that Illustrator is a vector-based drawing application, you don't draw on pixels, you draw on vectors, coordinates, is a very resource-intensive task as the image has to be re-rendered every time you pinch and zoom. It's used by graphic illustrators, web designers, and others. A very, very powerful application. But again, if you look at the user interface right now, it's quite small. The buttons are quite small, very difficult to get in there and work with a tablet-like device. Now, what Adobe's done is, I'm going to start a new document here. I'm just going to start a blank canvas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the keyboard, and I want you to watch the screen because as I remove the keyboard, we're going to expose a user interface that is designed exclusively for Surface that really sort of brings to light the top sort of 10% of the features that you need. And so all of a sudden, you have targets that are much easier to touch with a pen, with your finger, much easier to use. Again, if you're sitting in a hammock at the beach, you can do this. You don't have to have a mouse and a keyboard to do it at the same time. And so very easily, I can go in here and draw, for example, a heart by simply placing a few dots. If I double tap, it turns it into an anchor point or a corner point, and that way I can very easily draw a heart, color that. And again, because I have an active stylus, I can get in here and I can see where my pen is hovering. This is the big difference between an active stylus that Surface has versus, say, a capacitive pen like you would have on an iPad or something else. There's a sensor screen technology in there that detects the pen as soon as it comes close to the screen, and so you can see very quickly, very easily, I can see where my mouse is at. I can perfect my heart, and that's just another example of the work that Adobe and Microsoft are doing together to bring Windows 10 to life for creators.
Thank you very much, Marcus. That's really cool.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sevgili seyirciler, ekranda gördüğümüz ilginç gelişmeleri aktarmaya devam edeceğiz.